Welcome, everyone, to the Entertainment Buffet podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Brandon Prosek. Jessica is not able to podcast for a little while, so I'm going to be having some guests here and there when she is or isn't able to join me. And today I have a very special guest, one of my favorite comedians in Chicago. Amber Autry. How you doing, Amber?
Hey, I'm doing so great. How are you, Brandon?
As well as we can be in the crazy time we're in. Am I right?
Yes, dude. Yes.
Even that question alone always feels just like, how are you? It's like, well, I could either say awful or I could be like, you know what? Could be worse.
There's like a meme going around about like feeling bad for doing really well during the pandemic. Like you feel bad for saying like, I'm doing great. So I feel like everybody's response should just be like, it's shit. How is it?
But it's like, just like start with, well, it's shit, but actually kind of good.
Yeah. It's a flowery shit.
Yeah, exactly, for sure. Before we get started here, please, rate, review, subscribe to the Entertainment Buffet podcast, whether that's Apple, Spotify, if you're listening to us on something that I forgot I put you on, like Pocket Cast or Stitcher, show us some love there. We'd really appreciate it. And if you're on YouTube listening to this, please subscribe. We have tons of content coming your way. We have other podcasts that are assigned. They're going to be distributed on Entertainment Buffet, as well as video sketches and vlogs and various things. So don't want to miss out on that. But Amber, before we get started, where can people find you on social media if they want to go follow and stalk you?
Okay, first of all, I would love if people would stalk me. That sounds great. You can find me everywhere on Facebook, Instagram, and my website at Amber Autry Comedy. AMBERAUTRY Comedy. You can book me on my website at amberautrycomedy.com and follow my Instagram. I put little sketches and clips on there all the time. So
awesome. Yeah, please follow and share, all the different things for Amber Autry Comedy. Amber's someone that I've had the pleasure of going to many Chicago open mics with, performing on shows together. I was able to book you on one show before COVID hit. It's crazy. I figured when this all started that we would just take like a slight break from comedy, and here it's like pushing a year, and people like Amber I used to see like at least like once or twice a week just at various things.
right. It feels like a different life, honestly. Like miking and, you know, staying out till 1 a.m. doing mics and shows. Like it just feels like another life. It's weird.
Yeah. So tell the audience a little bit about yourself before we get going on here.
Yeah, so I am originally from the South. Woot, 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 woot. Uh, I'm from Tennessee, and I went to college for acting. But I always wanted to move to Chicago. Like I knew from being a child, I was like, I got to get to Chicago.
And if you don't mind, can I ask? Because like I'm someone I was born an hour from Chicago, and I've only ever lived in Illinois. So I always find it so interesting why some people like, whether it's like, because there's New York, there's LA, there's Chicago, obviously. But like, had you visited Chicago when you were younger and like loved it, or what made you want to come here?
I had never visited Chicago. You know what? I think it was probably that comedy was really like Second City was really pumped up here, and I don't know, man. I guess it was the Lord, if you believe in that. Like he was just whispering it to me because it was just always Chicago, no specific reason. Besides that I wanted to do comedy.
For sure.
So yeah. So I went to school for acting, and then when I got up here I did improv like most people do. Graduated from Second City and then realized that like improv was not what I wanted to do. You know.
I feel like that there's like one or two things with improv. Either it's like you're gung ho and you're improv for life, or you're like,
Well,
this is not what I
this
this is not what
is
I
this
thought
what
it.
I signed up for? I guess it is, but
Yeah, is this what I paid money to do? I took a couple classes at it too. Like we've all been there.
oh, I will say, like, the Second City was great for who I met and, the experiences it gave me. But like the closing graduation party, they had a pile of shirts on the stage and they were just like, find your size. We don't know what your size is. Find it and grab a piece of cold pizza and get out. So I was
Get
like,
out because
wow.
we have the next class graduating in an hour.
Yes.
And we have people graduating all the damn time with these improv degrees.
Right. Yeah. The veil was lifted. I was like, okay. So I have like an extra large Second City shirt in the bottom of my dresser that I'll never wear. If anybody wants to buy that off me for like $15, you can have it.
Yeah, Venmo, Amber Autry comedy.
Yes. For a one-of-a-kind graduation, Second City.
Yeah, you should sign it so when you're famous.
That's okay. See, Brandon, yes, great business.
That's also why I wanted you on the podcast. I was like, before she's famous, so that someday I could be like, see, I knew her.
Yes. Oh, I love you.
I love you too, bud. But yeah.
But yes, like I graduated from there, and then I was like, well, I don't really dig this that much. And my mom had always been telling me, like, you need to do stand up. You need to do stand up. So I tried it once, and I was like, I was hooked, man. I was like, oh man, this is everything. Like writing, performing, business. It challenged me. It challenges me in so many ways that it's addictive.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I've heard every stand-up I've talked to say that. It is, for those who have never done it, it is very, very addicting.
Yeah.
Because, I come from, you went for acting. I went to school for film and writing and such. And so like my video background, like I would make YouTube videos and like you send them to people and you're like, cool, I hope they watched them. Hopefully they laughed. What did they laugh at? I have no idea. And then once you do stand up or even like theater or improv sketch, something that's live and you get that live response, it's like, oh, I got goosebumps. And now this is like a high I'm forever chasing.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like, I think one of the weirdest things about, starting stand up is that people are like, oh, you're funny, you should do stand up. And then you think that it's just going to like immediately translate. People are going to think you're hilarious, but it's work, man. Like you can't just be like funny with your friends and get up. Like people want some kind of polished, even if it looks unpolished, people know if you're just like winging it. I don't know.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Well, that's the whole art of it. Everything that like professional comics, like there are some who kind of fly by the seat of their pants, and just kind of feed off the crowd. But for the most part, this is stuff that they've been working on for months, if not years and years. But they tell it in a way that feels so genuine, like it's for the first time. And I think general audiences, which I often say that for people who don't work in or perform or whatever in entertainment, because general audiences maybe haven't experienced what it's like to go to mics, go to rehearsals for a show or be on a show, produce a show, any of those things. And it could be music too. It's not just comedy. Like they don't quite understand that they're not, Jerry Seinfeld and like all these people, they're not just up there saying it for the first time. Like they are funny, but it takes time to get it to where that is. Because
1,000%.
Yeah. And I totally understand what you mean. Like being like the one you hang out with your friends and people think you're funny and you're like, oh, I could just do this up there. And then it's like, oh, it's not the same at all.
Right. And I feel like, this is something that everyone needs to know, because I feel like it would lessen the amount of times I get complete strangers being like, telling me a story about their friend group and something that happened 20 years ago and then being like, feel free to use that if you want. I'm like, yeah, I'll use that totally random story that does not relate to me. Like, they mean well, but it's just like, how would you, it's like, I don't get up there and ask the audience, like, what do you guys want to talk about?
Yeah.
It's time spent on the set.
Exactly. And there's so many different aspects to it, you know, whether it's going to an open mic and then having to maybe just say it one way at like 5 different mics and then be like, okay, I got to change this one thing, and then I got to say that like 5 times, and like, then it becomes this thing that, especially people like ourselves who were going to a lot of mics, you know, I'll just say like pre-COVID, there was like, I felt like a kind of a crew that we would always see each other at different mics, or the same mics every week. And sometimes it'd be like, yeah, we're doing the same joke again, but like we gotta, you know, we have to get it so that when we're on an actual show, it's not us fumbling through our words and forgetting a punchline or whatever it may be.
Totally. That was like an uncomfortable experience. I forgot about that, being like, oh, these same people I just saw last night at 3 different mics, they're gonna hear the exact same set. Like,
right?
Sorry, guys.
Yeah, like, yep, I'm still doing it. But hey, I thought of this one tag, you know?
Right. And that was a weird thing too, like with, you know, live, you know, pre-COVID is like, there's a difference in getting comics to laugh and get like, and then you get in front of a real audience and you're like, wow, these jokes are funny, you know?
Right? Or it could be the opposite, to where like you were starting to, not like you, but like in general, like we could have been trying to mold our set to make comics laugh, but then it may not make an audience laugh.
Right.
You know, and then we may have found stuff that we tried on a show, made an audience laugh, but comics don't give a shit, you know? It's like, it's such a weird mind game.
Yeah, it is. You have to just remember that, you know, you're working on your set and yourself, and not like, I don't know. I think the major thing for me is like recording my sets, because that always tells me the most, you know, when I
for sure. Yeah, same. I, you know, try to record video when I can, but like recording audio and then listening back and then be like, why did I say that?
No, dude.
It's like, I forgot this whole bullet point I meant to say that makes this joke funnier later. God damn it.
Exactly. You forget like half the joke and you're like, that's why people didn't laugh, because that wasn't a joke.
Right. Yeah. So I guess one thing I was curious about too, before I get too ahead of ourselves, so like, obviously you went to school for acting and such. Did you enjoy mainly doing comedic things? Did you also do drama? When it comes to like actual acting opposed to like stand-up, what was your, you know, experience with that?
Yeah, I've always enjoyed comedy. First off, like that's been my love forever. I used to like charge my family $0.25 to see living room shows in like the house that they paid for. I'd be like, oh, wait right there, it's $0.25.
Did you have a little ticket booth? And you're
It was way jankier than that. I would just like stroll by in my costume, like, quarter, please.
Instead of the lemonade stand, you have a ticket booth, and you're just like, can you quarter?
Behind these curtains, please, mother.
Yeah, I'll charge you lemonade. It's a 2-drink minimum. 2 lemonade and drink minimum for the living room show, plus the quarter.
Like, these need to be spiked. Where is the alcohol? We've seen this show.
Yeah. You can use that. No, just kidding.
Please help me. Maybe my first special will just be jokes that everyone else has given me.
Right. And it's called You Can Have That. And you tell everyone in the audience, all these jokes, you can have that. I don't care. I don't give a shit.
I don't give a shit. Oh my God. Yeah, but like, so going to college for acting, I obviously was more in love with comedy, but it was more serious things, you know, like a lot of serious plays, which I enjoyed because I love stretching myself, but I definitely was like, where's the comedy? I gotta get into comedy. I did for a while want to be like a famous actor, like just movie star, but that shifted a little bit.
Yeah, which I can get, because if you really think about it, like drama, like what's the response you can get from like an audience to know you're doing well? Like say like in a dramatic play, it's like if you hear people crying, like is what's the, you can't hear anything, like unless they come up to you after the show and it's like, oh my God, that was so riveting. It's like there's no, like comedy, you know whether you're doing well or not because there's an immediate response.
Right. I usually try to go for tears in my comedy and drama.
That's a good way to go.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a very good point. Maybe drama is a little more self-centered because you're just like, I'm doing so well right now. Like, I'm just, like, deep in emotion.
I bet there's at least one person tearing up.
Yeah.
Because of me.
I guess if you don't hear them opening their M&M packets, then you're doing like good, you know. If you're like rustling, you're fine.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean it's I feel the exact same way when it comes to like when I was in school for film, everyone was doing these super dramatic things and like I wanted to do comedy.
Nice.
You know, just because I was like, I don't know, I feel like if everyone is doing some dramatic thing about someone's sobriety or like someone getting out of rehab and someone like some form of abuse, I'm like, all right, I can only see this like so many times in the same class period.
Yes.
And so then like I just would want to do stuff, but the thing that's hard with like film is like you could go through the writing and then like the shooting and the editing, and then if it doesn't get a laugh, it's like, well well, I guess that just didn't work and we have to either try to re-edit it maybe, or like what, reshoot it, I don't know. It's so much harder, and that's what made it so much more difficult to keep working on like film stuff. I was like, well, if something fucks up, it's just fucked up. You know, like if I fuck up the joke Monday night, an hour later, I can go to a different micro show and hopefully not fuck it up.
Right. But filming takes a lot. Oh my gosh, yeah. I've been doing like a lot of sketch comedy, writing, filming, directing, editing during COVID, and it is a task, dog. It is like, please God, just someone just a like, or just maybe a haha would be great. It would be great.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about that. What have you been up to video wise?
So pre-COVID, I was with this group called the After Dark Show, and we did a live show that was everything: sketches, a monologue, a Wheel of Doom where we ate like bananas through glory holes, like just anything you can imagine. We did. And when COVID came about, we decided to switch to online, like making videos. So we've been putting out for I guess about 3 months now a video a week, and it's been awesome. I've gotten to practice writing sketches and directing and filming and editing and acting, sound. It's been a really great experience, and I think we're putting out pretty great stuff.
Yeah, I mean, the ones I've seen, I've enjoyed it, you know, and it's a great chance to see some of you guys who, like I said before, I used to, comedians, we used to see each other all the time at stuff. And so now, besides like occasional social media posts or like a video, it's like, oh, yeah, hey, it's Suze, you know?
We're still alive.
Yeah, oh, great. I'm glad.
It is. I will see like comedians that I wasn't really friends with before, like on the street, but now that I see them, I act like we are long lost. I'm like, oh my God, even though we've only talked like 2 times.
Yeah, for sure. Like if you run into someone or just like see someone at the store or something, it's just like, oh my God. And then you start talking and it's like in my head, I'm just like, I forgot how to do this. But it's just like, I guess we'll talk about COVID because fuck. You know,
right.
I wanted to talk to someone, but now that I'm doing it, I can't remember how to do it.
Right. My friend recently, I saw her, she was like, I just miss people, places, and things. She was like, I don't know why I'm listing nouns right now, but that's
right. Man, yeah. So you're working on some sketch and video stuff right now. Were you doing some of that like on stage? You said with your After Dark show pre-COVID, and I know you have some improv experience. Were you still doing some improv here and there? Like what other kind of shows were you doing pre-COVID?
Yeah, so we were doing sketches on the After Dark show for sure. I was doing improv because even though I have this like hate loathe relationship with improv, I do I do realize like the benefits of it, and it stretches me as a comedian. So I love to sing, and so I joined Mint, which is musical improv. So I was doing that pre-COVID, which was amazing. So that's just like regular improv, but you are forced into song by a pianist throughout the set. So that was a lot of fun. I had a good time with that. And then I was just doing like random one-off improv things with different groups, and trying to produce my own shows with restaurants. I ran this show called Giblets and Bits.
Yeah,
And
giblets and bits.
yeah, oh my God. It's that show meant so much to me, man, because it was like one of my first shows that was my own, that I was producing on my own. So I put a lot of work into that show, like standing on the corner in the cold, just like handing out flyers. Like that's something that I'll remember forever, just those experiences and what I learned.
Yeah, so like when it comes to producing, because like you said, you decided to go like the restaurant route, you know, especially in like Chicago and other like major cities like this, there's just a huge independent produced scene. So like there's so many kinds of bar shows, so many kinds of variety show. I was interested that yours was like, at an actual like place where you can get food, not just like cheap bar food. And it wasn't in like the back of some back room at a bar. So like what made you decide to go like the restaurant route? Did you have a relationship with the first restaurant you worked at?
Um, Man, how did that get started? I think I did a one-off at a restaurant. Like I was producing a one-off at this restaurant in Lakeview, and actually another comic was like, hey, why don't you just make that the show? Like, why don't you just do it at different restaurants? And it was a comic I looked up to that was like, I would consider like above me. And it was so kind that he just like one off like said this, and I was like, that's a brilliant idea. Yes, thank you. Which, it's so nice when you give advice to anyone, like knowledge is wealth and there's plenty of it. Like share it with everyone. So yeah, it came from him. And I just thought that like the restaurants would already have a following. Hopefully I could get in with good restaurants of people who already love it. And then, get them to come for, oh, they're having a comedy show too. Hell yeah, we'll go to that. So
Yeah, dinner and a show.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Nice. And so yeah, you did some producing for Giblets and Bits, and then you also you started producing with After Dark show, right? Yeah, not just performing with them.
Totally. Yeah, like booking comics and figuring out that show structure, which was insane. Even though it was a monthly show, there were so many parts to it. The After Dark team has a lot of great ideas that we just kind of let run wild. They're like, what if we had like, a gimp and a giraffe and we're all just like, yes, how do we get it? So it definitely stretched me as a producer. I'm grateful for it.
Yeah, which I guess that's one thing, especially when we're at the kind of like the level that a lot of us are at, is like, yeah, you can just perform, but like so many of us also produce at least one to multiple shows as well.
Yes.
Like what was your obviously you said you did kind of like this one-off show with the restaurant. Was there something about like that experience from kind of behind the scenes that made you be like, oh yeah, I want to keep doing this?
Yeah, the best thing, I mean, I love performing. It definitely made me a better performer producing because I showed up on time and didn't cancel. Those are the two things that I was, I learned a good deal about being a good performer from producing. I think my favorite thing about producing is offering time to people that I think deserve the stage that don't get it as often. So when I produce, I immediately I look at my lineup and I'm like, I personally, as a producer, want heavy like on women. I want more female identifying performers and more people of color. So like, you know, and it's funny because like a lot of shows will be like, I don't know, we just couldn't find anybody. And it's like, well, you have to go out and find those people, you know. It's like,
Yeah.
they're not coming to you, you have to produce, you have to do the work and go find them.
Yeah.
So that always felt good of like having people come up and just be like, wow, that was a great show. And you know, some people would be like, and it was all women, and I'm like, yeah, women are funny. Like,
Believe it or
you
not.
know.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Well, and that's what then I feel like once, because you know, I've experienced producing shows too, that like once you start, it feels like then when you go to mics or shows, you're kind of like half worrying about your performance and then also half like, oh, I want to get them on my show sometime. You know, like it's
Yeah.
like you're scouting. And I think that's one thing, like you said, I can't believe when I see lineups that are either all male or all white. It was just like, well, have you extended to people besides your friends? You know, have you gone to different things and seen people, or like asked around, or maybe you book someone and then you ask their opinion on some of their favorite comedians, you know?
Yes, exactly.
Because like one thing I learned when one thing that's really hard with some shows, like especially if you can't quite pay your performers yet, or if you can only pay a little, and if you want to try to get people you know, higher in the scene, like some real headliners, they're getting offers from freaking everyone. And so there's multiple times where like a headliner was like, sorry, I would love to do your show, but like I just got a club gig, and like that's 2-3 shows versus your one show. And I'm like,
Right.
totally get it, but like, can you help me find another headliner? You know, hopefully someone that's available who isn't going to get booked last minute.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't know, have you had, when you were producing, either like last minute cancellations and you had to either like give people more time or book someone else last minute?
Oh my gosh, yeah. It is. You know, it was wild to me how common it is in the stand-up comedy community to just bail. Like,
Yeah.
with no like sorries or like, oh my god, I'm sorry, I have to do, or explanation. Like, I've had like 30 minutes before the show, my headliner text me and be like, hey, I'm kind of like not able to do this, do you mind if my friend fills in for me? And I'm like, no, I booked you. I would prefer if you just came and did your like 15-minute set. You know, like it's not even. So yeah, it definitely challenges you because as a producer, in my opinion, you have to be like, okay, let me like. It's like working with actors. You know, it's like, okay, how can we help you? You know, get to where you need to be. But in your mind, you're like, never again will I book that person. You know, just like you know, it does affect you. And even if you're considered big in the scene, you never know what small person is where they're gonna be. You know, so
Yeah,
like
for sure.
stick to your commitments as best as you can. Like,
Yeah, and I think especially you know, where like people that I think that are at level or our level or like maybe below us, it kind of feels weird, the idea of canceling, you know, because we just like want bookings, we want stage time, we want exposure, we want to hopefully be on a show with someone else that's on booked on that show. You know,
right.
maybe we have like a comedian we respect on the show, we want to hopefully do well in front of them to like show or other comics who are also producers on the show. Like there's so many factors, so like I
Yes.
think it's so weird to think about the idea of like canceling. Well, why would you?
I know. There has been times personally where I'll like say yes to a show and then 2 days later I'll get like a paid gig, you know, like the show and I'm like, you know, with enough time, I'm gonna like rearrange my schedule to get paid, you know, because that's like that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure.
But 30 minutes before, like, what are you doing? You know, like,
Yeah, that's the thing, is like at least for the most part, I've been lucky enough to, most of the people who canceled last minute, they gave me at least like a day's notice, you know,
yeah,
something, or like hours, not 30 minutes. Like that's crazy.
it
You know,
is. Yeah.
Which is funny. It's like, oh, thank God they gave me 3 hours opposed to, it's still stressful, but like, at least I have 3 hours. Like,
Yeah, man. Yeah.
but
It's pretty wild.
for sure. So, between, obviously you've done improv, whether it's musical or just comedic or stand-up. Can you think of like maybe like both pre-COVID and then like maybe now, like what are some of like the favorite shows you've been on?
Oh,
Or like maybe
yeah.
a favorite set or, favorite room, any ones that like, oh man, that one was like, I'm going to remember that one.
Yeah, I've got two at the top, right at the top. One is Ladylike, Chicago in Chicago. Um, it's where female identifying and I think non-binary humans come on and talk about disgusting stories. And I felt on fire, man. I was like, oh my gosh, everything that happened to me when I was 14 and on was just like spilling out, and it was wonderful. No, it was a very loving room, and I felt like, yeah, I just felt on fire. It was really dope. And that's actually recorded. Ladylike has a podcast, so there's like
Nice.
an episode that they do.
Nice. So
Um,
your set's on a podcast as well.
yeah, yeah. I think they do the whole set on there. Yeah. It's
Cool.
it was a lot of fun. I was going off, and people were with me. So,
Nice.
yeah. And then the second one is at Comedy Bar. This like was also from the Lord, because I think it was like an audition type night, and the entire room was full of dentists, and I killed with some dentist material that I did not know I had, dude. I was just like,
How did you wait? Did the host find out that the room was full of dentists, or like how did you find that out?
I don't know. I think maybe a comic had like asked them beforehand, and
Did
they were
like
like,
crowd
"Oh,
work or
girl."
something?
Yeah, yeah. And I had one joke about my mom kissing a guy and his dentures falling out of his mouth. And I just like told that joke and then just like riffed on it. Like I had those rich people rolling, man. Those dentists cracking.
Those rich ass dentists rolling.
It was beautiful. I like comedy's so great, man, and I've gotten so much better, and a big part of that is due to me just like believing and loving myself, And
Yeah, for
nice.
sure. So now that we've heard a couple of your favorite experiences, what, and you don't necessarily have to say names or like the show if you don't want to, but what it was like the worst show you were ever part of? Like whether it's like you bombed hard or just like the whole show, you're like, maybe I should have canceled.
I text them before I go on, like I gotta be somewhere else.
Yeah, they're like, but you already checked in. It's like, emergency dentist appointment.
Yeah. Oh man. Oh, okay. I There was a show on the west side of Chicago that was a constant, like you could always get up and get stage time, which was great, but it was so freaking hard, man. Like you knew going in every time, you're like, this is gonna be hard, because the bar was long and everybody was there for the game. So it was just like, whew.
So like
It
the
definitely,
crowd wasn't fully paying attention.
no, no. And it's weird because you would sit in the audience and you'd see a couple people laughing at others, but once you got on stage you were like, everyone hates me, because you can't hear anything. And like, oh man, but I kept going back. And that's the addiction. It's like, it wasn't good cocaine, but I kept going back. But it stretched me as an artist too, because I learned how to keep performing when no one was laughing. So
How many times did you go?
so many times. Dude, I was probably on that show at least 4 or 5 times for sure.
And
And
did
long
did it
lineup.
get like better as it went?
I got better. The
I didn't know if like time 4 or 5, you're like, all right, I'm getting some chuckles, god damn it. Like
yeah, I think I try not to blame anything on the audience first. I try to be like, how am I how can I be better? But yeah, towards the end, it definitely, my confidence was better. So the overall experience seemed better. I like noticed the laughs. I could interact with the crowd. It was less like, that thing you do when no one laughs or you think no one laughs and you're like, okay, I guess you guys hate me. Like there was less of that.
Yeah, we've all had that feeling. It's like, oh, I guess everything I knew was totally wrong.
Right. I should go home and be a nurse. I don't know something.
I should just get rid of all of my material and start over.
Yeah. Yes, dude. Yes. It's crazy. It's so weird how many times I've done a show and been like, well, that sucked. And then go back and listen to the clip and I hear laughter. It's like you just tune it out,
Yeah, for sure. And then sometimes just the way the room is laid out, you could be, like you said, you could be getting laughs, but if it's a long room or the acoustics are a little bit different,
right,
it may not make it to the stage.
It sounds like we're bullshitting right now. It was a very long room and like rafters and
but like, see, like to me, like the producer side of me is just like, all right, well, maybe it shouldn't be in a room like that. Like there are those kind of factors that I think people don't pay attention to. I mean, I years and years ago interned at Comedy Bar, and I produced a show there where we did lots of stand-up, but then we also allowed a couple improv groups just to have like a variety. And the problem is, like, in that room in particular is like a very tall ceiling. So like, and they didn't have mics, so they weren't quite projecting. And so like the sound's just going up and it's like not making it out. And I'm like, one, I'm not sure if they're being funny, but two, people aren't able to hear it to determine if it's funny or not.
Oh no.
It's so like, yeah, it sounds like bullshit, but it's a total thing that like audience members may have no idea, unless they go to a show and like someone's mic doesn't work and they're like, oh, well, I can't even hear them,
Right.
So yeah, it is such a crazy, and that's something like another thing to stress about when you're a producer is like, is the audio working? What's the lighting situation?
It's a lot of work, man.
Yeah, on top of just getting the comics there.
Yes, honestly.
And getting
I'm
them
so
there
excited when I see
on
them
time.
show up. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
But okay, so that show on the west side, that was your just, it was always like a bit of a stretch to to try to get reactions.
And it was always long, like the lineups would be like 15 comics, so there were like a lot of addicts just being like, let's do it again, one more time, hit me again.
A lot of addicts. So true. So yeah, obviously we've been talking about it a little bit here and there, but COVID came and just totally shook like live entertainment. Just It's pretty much gone, or if it is, it's in a very, very, very reduced manner. So you're someone that has jumped on, virtual shows, Zoom shows. So I would love to first hear your experience, because I have not done any or seen any even. What was it like to jump not just on like mics, but then starting getting in front of Zoom crowds?
Yeah. At first it was exactly what people expect, where you're like, no one's laughing. I don't know what's going on. But for me, it didn't bother me. And I think that is partly because right before like COVID hit, I was like, this year is going to be the year that I am a full-time comedian. It's happening. This is the year. And then COVID hit, and I still had all that, like, it's happening. So for me, it was like, this is the way it's going to go. Like, this is how we're going to do it. So I kept going back to it and got more comfortable with it. And honestly, like, I've been doing a lot of it now, like producing on Zoom and performing, and it's great, man. Like, people will leave their mics off and laugh. You can hear laughter, or they can, chat. I just did a show where they told everybody to leave their mics muted.
Okay.
And we were like, oh, just like go off in the chat. And I've never seen any, like, so many LOLs. They were just like, lol. And I'm like, this is wonderful. It's wonderful because you get no heckling, but you're still like getting feedback. Yeah, it's really great.
That's awesome. Yeah, I was curious about the whole, if people have their mics on to hear them laugh, or if they're all muted and you're just kind of like looking at like maybe a screen that shows a lot of their faces and just kind of like, well, I see people kind of doing this, you know. Like
Is
I
it a
had no
heart
idea.
attack or laughter?
Yeah, it's so sometimes they're muted and they're just doing like a chat, like where it's all okay.
Right. Or there's emojis, like there'll be little like clap emojis or a thumbs up.
Yeah. Now,
Yeah, I really enjoy it, man. It's definitely a lesson too, like I said before, in just keeping going, like, trusting that you're doing well.
yeah.
And just keep going.
So as far as I guess first I'll ask this from like the performer side. Like say you're on a show, you're booked on a Zoom show. Like, do you have any idea from like your point of view, like how many like crowd members there are? Like, do you see like, oh, there's so many people in the meeting, or like, do you have any idea? You're like, this could be 2 people or 40 people. I have no idea.
Right. As a performer, I don't know until I'm in the Zoom, and then like it'll fluctuate sometimes, like members will come and go, because if it's like I do corporate shows, and some people are like, they'll click in and then they'll leave, and then so you never know until you're in there. What's really weird is when there's like 70 people in the room, but only 6 have their cameras on. So you're like doing crowd work, but it's like, you're only talking to the 6 people. It's very strange. That's probably one of the strangest things, because people will type in the chat like, I agree with that statement. And you're like, turn your camera on, you psycho. Like, why are you creeping?
Nice. So now when it comes to like the producing side of things, are you, since you're probably running the Zoom, are you able to kind of see how many people are coming and going, and be able to, I don't know, adjust things, or maybe let some of the comics know like, all right, so it looks like, we got this many people, or.
Right. Yeah. So there's like a waiting room. There is a waiting room that people can wait in, and I can let them in right before the show. And then during the show, I'll have people like latecomers coming in. So I can give the comics like a rough estimate of how many are going to be there. Usually it's at least, 15 people, which for comics, I feel like, if I've done a show, actually, I've been booked on a Zoom show where there was only the owners of the company, so like 3 people. Whew, I think producing post-COVID Zoom shows is harder just because I am starting from a completely blank slate. Pre-COVID, I could like walk into any business and be like, hey, I'm a comic. I can make, eye contact with them and meet people. But now it's completely like, I wake up in the morning like, okay, I'm going to wake up at 6 and get this started. And then I get to my computer and I'm like, who do I email? It's very much like, where do I go? And, I figured it out. I've gotten shows and made connections, but it's harder. It's harder to, the good thing is that I have more time to promote myself. So like I built my website and I'm able to like be on social media all the time, like putting my name in comments and in Facebook groups. But it's a challenge for sure.
Yeah, for sure. I could certainly see that. I mean, like we were talking earlier about just like producing video content and, trying to find things to do like without a lot of the in-person interactions. Just having to think of like, okay, what's like, how could I do this like just from my computer?
Right. Yeah. It's weird, man. And I know a lot of comics who are like, oh, I'm not going to do Zoom comedy because you're not connecting with the audience. But for me, at least, that is not true. Like, I've gained like followers and fans from it. So like, obviously there's some kind of connection, and like, it's worth it. It's worth it if you miss comedy.
Yeah, for sure. So, during this, have you been able to do some kind of socially distant shows as well? Like not just virtual, but.
Yes, I have. Like, Indiana doesn't, COVID doesn't exist there. So I if you guys
they don't have it. It missed them. It is. It's in the other 49 states.
Even COVID was like, no, thank you, Indiana.
Please tell me that's a bit you do in Indiana.
No, and I love Indiana. Please have me back. You guys. Yeah, I've been at the Market Lounge in Valpo. That was amazing. That was such a good time. Good crowd turnout and socially distanced. He made that place great. So love that show. And then recently I had a dream come true where I performed at the Comedy Bar in Nashville. And
Nice.
yeah, and my family got to come see me. And oh man, it was just a freaking blast. And it's funny because Colton Stewart, he used to work at the Comedy Bar in Chicago, but he works in Nashville now.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, I'm going to be honest with you, I didn't think you'd do well, because I was like, oh, okay. Please say more. But he was like, Chicago comedy doesn't usually translate to the South, but you killed it. And I was like, well, I am from here. I didn't say that. I was just like, yeah, woo, thank you. But it was just all around like a great show. I had a good time.
Yeah, which that's one thing, we were talking about like what were our goals for 2020. That was one thing that was going to be a goal. And, we even talked about possibly trying to produce something in Tennessee, do some road shows, just because as many shows as we can do, like in Chicago or like the suburbs of Chicago, you really got to get to other cities, other states, other areas, because you can be really, really great here or good here, but then if you just go somewhere else and you have no experience being somewhere else, and like realize that your jokes may not translate,
Right.
Like there's so many times where I'll see like a comedian, they'll be talking about like jokes that are on like the Chicago L, and it's just like, well, there's a lot of places that don't have public transit like that. So like you either need to mold the joke to something more generic, or, not do just Chicago based comedy, because otherwise you're going to be kind of stuck using those kind of bits there.
Totally. Yeah, and people have different views. Not everybody is like really excited to hear your vagina joke,
Really? Wow.
Yeah, so yeah, that's very true. Have you you had a lot of shows in the suburbs. Are they like all those places that you were at, are they closed down for COVID?
Yeah, well, I think there's some places, some bars that are kind of trying to do smaller, like letting limited people into the bar. I've thought about it, like personally, like wanting to try to, I was like, maybe I'll produce something outdoors when it's warm or whatever it may be, but it's just been so hard, as far as like trying to, think about like, well, will this feel good like right now? But then like if something were to happen, worst case scenario, like what would I, like regret producing to bring people together? Like producing Zoom, that's like safe. People are, at their computer, distance from one another. But like, I would hate the feeling of like bringing people to like an indoor location and then something happen, and then like obviously it wouldn't necessarily be my fault, but it's like, well, would they have all gone out if I, if we hadn't put on a comedy show?
Yeah.
It's hard. So I'm like really looking forward to when it is safe in a way that, isn't going to make, whether it's a performer or like the producer or like even the owners of the establishment, like nervous at all. But yeah,
That's true.
Hopefully, it may not be 2021, but hopefully later on in 2021, maybe 2022, it'll like make more sense. But it's really interesting just to hear, the Zoom stuff, because I think like myself, both as a performer, producer, or just an audience member, I have no experience with it, but now you're making me more interested in either trying it myself or like encouraging other people to, hey, Amber's producing this Zoom show, you should, attend.
Totally.
Because I think a lot of us are like, oh, I don't know, like what to expect. Is that going to be weird?
Right. And the good thing about, being an audience member in the Zoom is that you are not called out for having your camera off, you know, like you can just like be in your underwear at your home with comedy on and not be like seen. It's like a perfect situation if you're not into sitting in the front row to enjoy entertainment from home. It's really nice.
For sure. So, yeah, we're getting close to 2021. It's crazy.
I know.
Have your goals kind of shifted as far as like focusing on kind of like these corporate Zoom gigs for a while? Is that and more like video sketches? Is that your kind of your set goal for right now with 2021?
Yeah, so I'm getting closer, but still have a goal of being completely supported by comedy. I, you know, I at first I kind of like shied away from the Zoom or from the corporate shows because I'm like, I have to be clean. What does that mean? Like, I don't want to be told what to say. But I found myself really enjoying it. So um, yeah, the goal is to get more corporate shows, build more relationships with corporate offices and private parties. Like someone just booked a birthday party for their wife with me, and I'm super excited about it because they're like, we saw your stuff, we like what you do, like let's do it. So get more of those, and then really like get more followers on my Instagram and Facebook, followers who interact and share and like my stuff, because uh, I can't express enough how helpful that is. You know, like you look at Facebook's like rules for monetizing your stuff, and it's like you got to get the followers and the likes and the views, and it's like, man, if people just like hit a button, it would help me. So it would help me get a job, you know, like
Yeah, for sure.
and like so I'm really just trying to like build that up, and yeah, make I've been making like short videos, like TikTok videos are really in right now, so I've been like making Instagram reel videos. So yeah, just trying to like put myself out there more.
For sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's awesome. And well, you brought up one thing that I always loved discussing with people pre-COVID, but I guess it's probably more prevalent now, like you said, with corporate and Zoom shows, is the whole debate on clean versus not clean comedy. So when you were first told that, were you like real like afraid, you know, like just that, like, oh, I'm not going to be able to do this joke, or I'm going to have to change these jokes?
Right. Instantly, I was like, do I have any clean material? Now, I was doing clean shows pre-COVID, um, doing like 5 to 10 minutes of clean material. But for some reason, you know, people were like, oh, do you have clean material? And I was like, do I? Because, you know, I think of clean material like, I don't think of myself as a clean comic, you know. But when I look at my stuff, I'm like, yes, this is clean. So I think it's pretty much a lot in my head, you know, where it's like I have stipulations, like can I meet these, you know? But yes, I can do it. Oh, what was I gonna say? There's I just part of me, the thing with clean comedy, and I've been really enjoying it, but like is a little upset because I'm just like I've been told by a producer like pre-COVID where he was like, now you can't talk about your body, but this male comedian who's on the lineup with you, we're gonna let him do it because you know that's just who he is. But we can't have you talking about your body, okay?
Wow.
Yeah, and that stuck with me where I was just, and he was like, you get what I'm saying, and I'm like, no, I get it. I don't agree with it, but I get
Yeah.
it. So I think that in the beginning was a little bit of the hesitant for me because I was like, I don't want to be told that like my experience as a woman is dirty or like not acceptable. But that hasn't been the case at all, and my jokes have been well received. So it's been really nice.
Yeah, and see, and I've been someone who like for a long time, I didn't always like I didn't always only try to do clean comedy, but like I was like, well, there's a lot of times where sometimes they're wanting you to be clean anyway. So maybe if I try to make most of my jokes clean, and if they get the right reactions, then when they throw that stipulation on me, I'm not going to be as flustered, because I have options. But it's interesting because you brought up like I produced and hosted and performed on shows in just the suburbs of Chicago, which is crazy because sometimes it's only 10 to 35 miles from the city. So not far at all. But people out there, it's not that they only want clean comedy, but I think they just, when you first are up there, they just don't want things to be so overt. Because they are typically people who are either older, they have kids or grandkids, they have families, they move to the suburbs, to have families, and, they're not, in the city, and they also probably don't go to shows that often, they don't go that often. So when they go, maybe they're just used to throwing on, clean John Mulaney, relatively clean John Mulaney on Netflix. He's like a safe bet, or like Brian Regan. And so they go to a comedy show and they're seeing a bunch of people they've never heard of. I think they don't want just like right off the bat someone to be like dick, just like, they're like, whoa, like what the fuck, what is happening, what did we pay for?
Right. Yeah.
So, yeah, and so like I would often tell like the comics that I like produce on, like, this is not a clean show per se, but like just be aware that the crowd is an older demographic.
Right.
Is a demographic of people that don't go to shows all the time like us comics do, or like young people in the city who like maybe they go to a play on Monday, they go to a comedy show on Tuesday, and they go to a concert on Friday. These are people that maybe once a month, this is their night out, they got a babysitter. Like, they just want to laugh and have fun, and like don't maybe call them out, like you were saying, like call people out on Zoom even. Don't call them out, because like they're gonna be like, oh, this is why I didn't want to sit here, or like this is why I just wanted to watch Netflix.
Exactly.
So it's real crazy just to see, we're Chicago based, but only 10 to 35 miles in one direction or certain directions, it's totally different.
It is very interesting. Yeah, for sure. And I think for performers too, like at least in my experience, I thought of clean and I'm like, oh my God, I have to tell jokes about like tablecloths or something. I'm like, I'm like, what am I going to joke about? But most of your jokes, or at least my jokes, are clean. And if they are raunchy in some way, they can be shifted, So it's not like you have to start all over. It's like just,
Yeah. I mean, think about it like this, like how many shows, for example, like sitcoms on like NBC, ABC, and Fox, like when we grew up with, would be raunchy, but they just had censors, so they had to make metaphors or analogies or like dance around the thing. I mean, I always bring it up because I was like, guys, Seinfeld made an entire episode about masturbation, but they never said it and they weren't overt. They just had to stretch their writing muscles to find things to where everyone's like, I know exactly what they're talking about, but they're not saying, jerking off a cock, they're saying, like, oh, master of his domain, like it's, we all know what they're talking about once you're old enough to know. So it's like, why, we're not saying you can't talk about anything inappropriate, but like maybe just, sprinkle a little bit more, of analogies and like dancing around it, and not just like hitting the button, not just like boom, boom, boom,
Totally.
So
I will say though, like I do dream of a day where humans are not scared of sex. Like I do dream of a day where clean comedy, you can say body parts and you can talk about sex, like, because it's so freaking weird, man. It's like I love the comedy I do and what I've been doing lately, but it's like, can we not be afraid? Because most of us aren't. It's just like this general blanket from like old Puritan times where it's like, shh, don't talk about it,
For sure. Yeah, no, I get it. growing up in those suburbs where, you know, like was told to like not swear. It's like, well, you're just making me want to swear more. You know, and like, you know,
Right.
oh, telling us not to talk about sex, like you just make us want to learn more about sex. You know, it's just,
Exactly.
let's just that would be great. Like you said, like dream is someday let's just all take a fucking chill pill
Yes.
and know that we all literally exist because of fucking.
Amen.
Can I get an amen to that fucking?
Truly, though, I think it would solve so many things, even beyond performing, just like interactions with other humans. Like it would just, it would solve a lot.
For sure. Well, Amber, it's been a blast to talk with you, both just about comedy and in general.
Yes.
Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Please feel free to plug your social medias again. If anyone missed it at the beginning, where can they find you?
Yes, so you can find me on Facebook and Instagram at Amber Autry Comedy. That's AMBERAUTRY Comedy. You can also book me at amberautrycomedy.com.
Nice. Yeah, she's got a brand new website.
Yes, that I made all myself, so go check it out.
For sure. And do you have any Zoom shows coming up you wanted to plug?
Yeah, I do. So these will all be listed on my Instagram. I post about them. So yeah, on Friday, December 18th at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, there's a virtual show called One More Dad Joke. I will be on. It's a clean comedy show, and then at the end, everybody tells their favorite dad joke. So
Nice.
I'm really excited about that. So yeah, that'll be virtual, and I'll post the link to that in my Instagram.
Awesome. Yeah, and well, I'll be sure to get that link from you and make it available in the description so people can check it out.
Oh, perfect. And also, I am a producer of not only corporate shows but private shows as well. So if you're looking to get with your families over the holidays, or for the foreseeable future, we aren't able to gather, but a virtual comedy show is a great way to get together with family members and loved ones. And I always have like a great lineup of professional comics. So book a show for a private event at amberautrycomedy.com and let's laugh together.
For sure. Well, thank you so much again for coming on, Amber. And everyone, please check out her social medias. Please check out her shows. Winter is coming, and I'm sure you're going to need a laugh. And you've been surfing Netflix and Hulu and all those things. Well, let's just see something that is totally original. And, these could be comics that in the next handful of years, 10 years or so, could be famous to where you're like, oh, I saw them on a Zoom show back during the pandemic.
1000%.
For sure. All right, guys. Well, thanks so much for listening or watching if you did. And we'll see you next episode.